Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football, here with Houston head coach Willie Fritz. Coach, we were just talking about it. You're one of the only guys here that can say that they coached Texas high school football, all the levels going up. What makes it unique? What makes Texas high school football so special?
Well, number one, I'm proud to be a former Texas high school football coach, but it's the coaches, in my opinion. I mean, we got great talent here in the state, but a lot of states have got great talent. It's just the attention to detail. We have so many of them that come and clinic with us at the University of Houston. And when I was at Blinn, they used to come over. When I was head coach at Sam Houston, they'd come over, and just their knowledge, attention to detail, discipline, structure. I had a coach that I just hired. He'd never recruited the state of Texas, our defensive coordinator, Austin Armstrong, and he was amazed at Texas High. He goes, "It's everything I thought it was." He goes, and he's been around a lot of good states. There's a lot of good football in the country, but there's nothing like Texas high school football.
You've coached high school, JUCO, FCS, all the way up, right? G5, now at P4. After your first year at Houston, what was different? Was there any differences between that level and the other levels you've coached at?
I think there's a ramp up in recruiting. I'd never been able to recruit a 5-star guy or a 4-star guy, or all those kind of different things. So that was big. And then, also just the competition. I think everybody in the Big 12 is well coached, and I think everybody's pretty good. We had some games people probably thought we wouldn't have a chance of winning last year, and I saw that across the conference. I heard a stat that there was more fourth quarter lead changes in the Big 12 than any other Power 4 conference last year in the fourth quarter. So there's a lot of great things about this conference. I think our commissioner does an outstanding job as well. I think he's really a forward thinker, and we need that in this day and age of college football.
I know at your old jobs, you would line the fields and keep the stats and do kind of all that kind of stuff. You ever get bored with all the help that you got now? You ever look around and you're like, well, y'all just let me do some of this stuff?
My son he works for me. He said, just enough to screw everybody up, everybody's job. But I just have so much respect for everything that everybody's doing, from our nutritionist to athletic trainer to strength and conditioning to our academic supervisor. I've done all those jobs, and then you get all the coaches. And one of the things I just try to do a great job is organizing, keeping everybody on the same page, not having any surprises. Oh, I didn't know you were doing this or that. And that's not just on calling a fourth down play. It's also with how they run a program. So, this is a byproduct of me, my parents. I'm always walking around the facility picking up trash. It was like, God dang, man, I'll get that. No, I'll get it. And I just think it's, the way I was raised, and and hopefully, we got some people call me old school, and hopefully we got a lot more old school guys coming up the ranks because we need them.
One of the things I would say about you is you've always been able to evolve, right? Like, as the sport's changed, as you've gotten to new places, you've been able to keep up with that. Like, you ever think back of being a player and just how you would have handled kind of the current landscape with NIL and rev share and transfer portal and just kind of all the hurdles, all the stuff that these guys going to have to go through?
It's just so different than when I played. I played a long time ago, and you got a T-shirt at the beginning of the school year, you thought you got $1 million, and there's just so much pride in that school. Matter of fact, I had a little reunion with second reunion when I was up in Kansas City with a bunch of my former teammates, and boom, they're all there. Within 5 minutes, we were telling the same bad stories and reconnecting, just like we do every time I see those guys. So I want our guys to have that same connection. I want them to be at the University of Houston, have pride in being a Cougar and having these lifelong friendships. I just think that's I guess that's old school. I don't know, but yes, I've changed and understood about rev share and NIL and the transfer portal, and but it's also, I've changed with strength and conditioning. I've changed with how we do things academically and helping these guys find their first job, and all the things that are important when a guy's going from 18 to 22 years of age. So, we're going to work on all those different things all the time. It's changed, but it still boils down to, I think, being a good role model and mentor to your student athletes. And we try to do that on a daily basis.
I love going to Houston practices. One, because you have them open to media. That we really appreciate that. Also, because I get to hear you on your megaphone throughout the whole practice. Kind of when did that start? Where did that come from? What's the origin story of the megaphone?
You know, I used to. You can tell right now. I still can't amplify my voice very well because I yelled encouragement for so many years, right? But I would be yelling and screaming, and because back in the old days I coached everybody. You know, I didn't have all these coaches that I got now, and I went to a practice and I saw Frank Gans. His son actually coached at the University of Houston at one time, but Frank Gans Sr. was coaching the kicking game for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he had this big microphone out there with a bunch of speakers. And I was like, man, that is genius. And I went back and I started doing it. I used to carry around a little deal. Now everybody can hear me, and you know, some of the kids get a kick out of it because I'll be the other end of the field. I'll see something they did that wasn't correct, and I'll correct them. And I encourage them. There you go. That sounds better. But yeah, I picked that up from him, and it's something I've done ever since. Now I can maintain at least where they can hear me the whole year instead of the old days where week 2 they couldn't even hear me.
Year 2, and 2 new coordinators, a lot of new faces through the transfer portal. What are you excited about for the 2025 Cougars?
We got depth. We didn't have that last year at all. I think we've got competition for positions. You know, the first 2-3 games, we're going to have to figure out who's playing, who's starting, how much they're going to play. You know, can they play for an extended period of time? Who can play kicking game and play on offense and defense? You know, we got to find all this stuff out. And last year, yeah, we rolled some guys, but it was really to keep guys fresh because it didn't matter quite as much at a few positions who we had out there and playing. So that's the thing I'm excited about most.
What has Conor Wiggman shown you at the quarterback position to kind of count on him as one of the leaders of this team?
He can do everything. You know, he's got good movement, good speed. He's bigger than people probably think he is. Really quick release, smart. He's got a high football IQ. And he's a winner with his attitude. You know, I can't stand a prima donna, and oftentimes at that position, you know, I haven't had him because I won't recruit him, or they don't stay with me very long. But he's a team guy. You know, he could have played another position. You know, which you can't say that about all quarterbacks all the time.
What did you want out of the OC when you bring in Slade Nagel, who I know you have familiarity with? Like, what were some of those things that you wanted from your next OC?
Well, you know, obviously the main thing is having the ability to run and pass the football. I want to be 50-50. I think in this day and age you have to. And then I know Slade inside and out, and he does a great job of coaching the entire offense. Some coordinators coach the quarterback and they're the offensive coordinator, or they got the tight ends or the wide receivers, and they're really worried about that position. We're blessed where we've got a lot of quality coaches, and Slade can run entire meetings, or he can have the skill guys. He can work with the offensive line and the tight ends. He can go in and sit in the quarterback meeting. He's really got a lot of great experience, and you know, just I think he also does a very good job of figuring out, you know, it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmys and the Joes, right? You got to, what can your guys do? What are they capable of doing? What do they have a difficult time doing? And keep them away from doing that. He does a pretty nice job of that, and I try to help him in that regard. But overall, he's just an excellent overall offensive coordinator.
And last year, y'all's defense was really good. You know, Shield Wood now at Texas Tech. You bring in Austin Armstrong, as you mentioned, who's kind of more of a southeastern guy. Were you looking for a similar scheme there when you go and replace Shield, or how do you kind of go about picking a DC in that situation?
I wanted there to be some similarities, and there are a lot of similarities. Most people are running an odd front, 3-man front, a even front, 4-man front, you know, and trying to do it out of the same personnel, if at all possible. And Austin certainly does that. We're incorporating a few things that we did last year that maybe Austin has not done. We kept the rest of the staff so they understand it inside and out. They're learning what Austin likes to do also, but he really does a good job with pressure packages also. A few years ago, he was one of the highest rated Havoc coaches, in the nation. So I like that about him as well. And like Slade, he's a great guy. I like being around good people, and those two certainly are.
Speaking of good people, you mentioned your son earlier, Wes, who works for you there on the staff and the player side of that thing and general manager. What's it like working with your son? Like, I would imagine as a dad, that's got to be kind of a dream come true. Like, what's that process like?
Oh, it's fantastic. I get to see him every day. We talk a lot about work. I got to be careful when we're away from the office about not talking about work, and he does too. Because we're in it. And I always know he's got my back. I'm always 100% positive of that. And I also get a chance to see my daughter-in-law and my grandson a heck of a lot more than most people get to see their grandsons or daughter-in-law. So he does an excellent job. He's very, very humble, but he's been a big secret to our success at Tulane, and he's also going to be a big secret to our success here at the University of Houston.
And then last question, you've kind of gone through some rebuilds. You've taken over programs before. Like, where do you think y'all are in year 2 now, or where you want to be? And how do you kind of measure that success as you move forward?
Well, you measure it with wins. We're going to find out, correct? I feel like we're a lot better, but we got to go out in the field and prove it. Got to prove it in practice every day. We got to prove it every week when we play ball games. Big 12, very competitive, very balanced. We're going to have to play our tail off week in and week out, but I feel like we're better. We're going to find out how much.
All right, sir, appreciate you.
Thank
Willie
you.
Fritz, head coach Houston. Thanks, sir.
Betcha. Thanks for having me.
Yep, absolutely.